Breathtaking.
Majestic.
Beautiful.
Diversity.
Memorable.
Unique.
National Park, National Park.
The creation of the national parks has led further understanding and development of the importance of preserving nature, the wildlife, and being able to learn from American history. The Organic Act of 1916 created the National Park Service, which protected the national parks. This act caused change economically, socially, and intellectually, such as increasing appreciation for wildlife, desire to leave urban areas, and the popularization of automobiles.
Preserving the national parks results in biodiversity, healthy ecosystems, defending endangered species, clean water, and reducing the impact of natural disasters. These results are important because national parks help preserve what matters most. It invites people to learn, grow, and explore.
A national park is a part of the United States that is preserved and protected by the government to sustain ecosystems.
There are 63 official parks, which are all important monuments that shape our country. Today, National Park Services manage 84 million acres of land. The first person to explore areas that would later become the national parks was John Coulter in 1807 and 1808. He explored in order to gain trading experiences.
For 11,000 years, Native Americans lived in areas out west along the dangerous rims and edges. They discovered scenic places that are now called Yellowstone River and Yosemite Valley. The government wanted these territories and tried to remove them from the areas. As the Native Americans were being pushed out in 1864, President Abraham Lincoln responded to the pressure of taking care of nature by creating the Yosemite Land Act to protect Yosemite Valley.
The Congress of U.S. set 3,400 miles of square land aside in Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana to create Yellowstone, which was first established in 1872. President Ulysses S. Grant signed a landmark bill, the Yellowstone National Park Protection Act, into law on the 1st of March in 1872. It was a bill to make the grounds a park for the public to enjoy and experience.
Theodore Roosevelt, also known as the Conservation President, doubled the national park sites. He signed new legislation that established 5 new national parks, including Oregon Wind Cave, Sully's Hill, Mesa Verde, Crater Lake, and Platte District. Roosevelt had an enactment to create the Antiquities Act of June 8, 1906. This act allowed Roosevelt to proclaim historical marks and have federal ownership of national monuments.
In 1901, Theodore Roosevelt used his authority to protect the public lands and wildlife. He made the change by creating the United States Forest Service. The United States Forest Service established 50 national forests, 51 federal birds, 4 national games, 5 national parks, and 18 national monuments. Before the ability to experience the popular parks, there were controversies about creating the National Park Service. The United States Forest Service saw NPS as a threat to their superiority, even though NPS was responsible for preservation, and United States Forest Service took charge of utilitarian conservation.
The United States Forest Service broadened their obligations as a reaction to the threat, which created competition between the two agencies. Around this time, President Roosevelt gained the attention of Muir's writings about how diverse and extraordinary the parks were. Roosevelt invited Muir camping in Yosemite, where they shared conservation ideas and explored the area. This inspired Roosevelt to set more than 230 million acres of public land to national monuments. One of these new parks was Theodore Roosevelt National Park, which was created to honor the president and give American citizens an area to experience his beloved Badlands.
Well, when I went to the Badlands, we came there early in the morning, so we woke up to the Badlands, and it was all these browns and rustic colors, and it wasn't all green. It was like sandcastles that were formed by nature. It was just it was amazing. There's no way you can describe it. You have to see it to really appreciate it.
Visitors come from all over the world to see these extraordinary areas. Outside countries have taken inspiration into account from travelers for the creation of their own national parks. When people travel, it increases the use of automobiles and amount of money spent. This creates growth to jobs and government economics of $35 million each year. The most visited park is the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with about 14 million visitors per year.
In 2022, NPS received about 312 million recreational visits. Tourists participate in activities such as biking, camping, climbing, horseback riding, fishing, hunting, hiking, and swimming.
National parks provide ranger-led programs, education, exhibits, and hands-on activities in fun and engaging ways. The visitor centers are an example of these educational programs, which were created through National Park Service's Mission 66. They are located in almost every national park, which has rangers to help with questions, give information, and displays.
The Indiana Dunes are home to diverse species and habitats in the nation. They are formed by the mix of wind, water, quartz, and silica, and they are still able to be changed by nature today. The dunes have taken several of thousands of years to form, with its highest point about 200 feet above Lake Michigan.
The movement to create the park for the public started in 1899, but it was officially authorized in 1966. There are over 15,000 acres that includes 15 miles of shoreline and 15 miles of trails. These areas help contribute to the amount of people who visited and continue visiting the park. The rangers there provide guidance to the tourists and help contribute to the maintenance of the park.
A day for a park ranger is never the same. You spend your time doing such a wide variety of things. Like I said, you have to run a business. You're expected to actually make money in that role. You've got employees that you've got to provide leadership and guidance to. You've got a resource. The resource is the most important thing. That's why we're there.
In 2021, around 3 million visitors went to the Indiana Dunes, with 60% of them being from somewhere other than the state of Indiana. On a yearly average, they get around 1.6 million people attending the park, according to Bront Ballman.
The park has contributed to the maintenance of the various forms of life. It has been included as a national park to protect the local wildlife of Indiana and continuously spread awareness around the country.
The commitment of the role of national parks has been strengthened through better scientific understanding of protecting wildlife, native plants, and natural resources.
Well, right before I went to Yellowstone, Yellowstone had major fires. And a lot of people were upset because the firefighters didn't put out the fires in the national park, and some people thought they should. But what they forgot to realize is fire is a part of the natural development of national parks. So by the time I got there and I would go and visit some of the areas that were the burned areas, there was already new life beginning to spring up. And that was the most incredible thing I think that I've ever seen.
Preserving these natural resources gives us clean water, air, and an open space for future generations. Previous generations used the lands to fight battles such as the Civil War, with parks ranging from Delaware to Texas. Gettysburg, Shiloh, and Pea Ridge National Military Parks are some of the many places the Civil War took place at. These experiences now help the National Park Service interpret cultural stories to better understand society in the parks. They provide living museums that allow our country to understand moments that help shape our nation.
The living museums have improved awareness of being able to preserve the parks. An example of this came from John Muir, where he states, "Thousands of tired, nerve-shaken, over-civilized people are beginning to find out that going to the mountains is going home, that wildness is a necessity, and that mountain parks and reservations are useful not only as fountains of timber and irrigating rivers, but as fountains of life." Some illustrations of the fountains of life that the parks provide are animals' food, area to raise children, grow, and rest to threatened and endangered species. Prior to this, hunting bison was a popular activity, causing them to almost go extinct. Because Yellowstone is now protected, the bison population is increasing. Now, the bison population is in a safe environment from being in a protected area.
The creation of the national parks has allowed growth and knowledge of the United States. Citizens can understand the past life of tribes and how they lived, wildlife, stories on events, as well as experience the natural beauty of the parks.
These topics can impact culture because it changes the way people see the U.S., making them live a different lifestyle. The national parks represent important monuments that have helped shape our nation in various ways.